What is up there everyone, it's the Gardener Gamertech here, and today I wanted to share some Battlefield 4 information which I think you might find interesting. Now, you may not know, I am a very heavy Rush player. Rush is the game mode I like to play the most, simply because I find it focuses where everyone's going to be, and it offers a great balance between infantry, vehicle and objective gameplay. That is why I really love that mode. However, I decided actually I was going to try and play some TDM, and when I played it I was amazed because it has got so much better since the launch of Battlefield 4. Now, you may not know, but in the recent spring patch for Battlefield 4, DICE eliminated the ability to get on rooftops on maps like Siege of Shanghai, Lankang Dam and Zavod 311, which makes the map so much more playable because you have so many less power positions, because that was a huge problem in TDM, was people were getting on top of these building rooftops and they could just rain death down on everyone else, and it was really badly balanced because you could do very little to counter it. Firstly, because they had the height advantage on you, but secondly because there were only one or two ways of getting up on that rooftop, which mean all they needed to do was put a couple of claymores down and you could not get up there, and it just made it really annoying and frustrating to play against. However, since they've removed that, the game mode plays so much better, and with the netcode improvements it makes the game just feel better to play because the gunfights are a lot more stable. You don't find yourself dying when you should be getting kills as much. However, playing this mode now that it's better, I do realise there are still quite a few rough edges in the game mode. One of the main ones being the spawns. I found myself running in and just killing a few enemies and I'd find them all just spawning around me. It was complete chaos at times because the spawns just don't quite seem to work properly at the moment, and you will sometimes find yourself just having the entire enemy team spawning around you, which isn't too much fun. And I also found that the netcode, although it was better, you still found some problems with some gunfights. I did find myself getting really blatantly killed around corners. However, that could actually be down to ping, because what some people say is that the reason why you're still getting killed around corners could well easily just be because some player has a much higher ping than you, and so it registers slightly later. But I also found playing TDM was also really good for just helping me improve as a player, improving my gun skill and my flanking, because you have to think, because everyone around you is trying to get the same kills as you and the enemies are all trying to kill you. And in playing TDM, I've also started using this small little manoeuvre which I'm going to call the Strafe dodge. Basically, when you go up to cover, as you start to peek out, just start crouching and standing back up again, because as I'll have shown you on screen, the height difference between when you're standing and crouching is quite a lot. So that means when you're crouching and standing back up again, your character's animation is going to look quite weird for the enemy, which makes it much harder for you to hit them. So it's just something that I found quite useful, but I only use it when I think I'm going to lose a gunfight or that I'm not sure if I'm going to win it, just because the weird sort of bouncing animation of your character might just off-put the enemy and screw up their aim. So it's just one little technique I found to be really useful. So you've got to think of how you can manoeuvre around the map so the enemies won't find you, and when they do find you or you've found an enemy, you need to be able to take them out without alerting everyone around them, and actually so you can get a good amount of kills and win the game for your team. And I found that actually playing on maps like Paracel Storm put a massive emphasis on flanking, because there is not as much cover, so you have to work out how you're going to manoeuvre around the map and take out the enemies, and I just found it quite fun. It was a nice change from the pace of Rush and Conquest, where you're just sort of running from objective to objective, taking out any enemies that get in your way. Whereas TDM, you just got a bit more of a sneaky stealth role. You've got to kind of manoeuvre around the map, and you also have to play to your weapon's strengths. I found myself actually using a lot more variety in my weapons, just because I felt like, I was like, you know what, the PP2000 is absolutely useless, but I'm going to use it, I'm just going to have a bit of fun with it. And in using the PP2000, one tip that I found really useful is actually just using hipfire in close quarters, and in maybe even slightly further than just barrel stuffing range. Because on console, I've always found it quite difficult to use hipfire, because you have to use thumbsticks and it makes it a lot harder to aim. On PC, hipfire for days, that's how people just seem to play, because it's a lot easier on PC with the mouse because you can be more accurate. But on console, it is very beneficial to use the hipfire, because the hipfire on guns like the PDWs is so good, you might as well make some use of it. And just make sure that you can control your thumbstick, because that is something I've always had the problem with, and I'm still trying to train myself to get better at, is making sure I don't lose control of my thumb, because if you can keep your crosshair on the enemy in hipfire, you will almost certainly win a gunfight at barrel stuffing range, unless the person gets a lucky headshot. But that's just one tip I found generally helpful. And that's the thing with TDM, it's actually kind of a sort of more casual mode, because you're just going around and killing everything. And that's just sort of quite fun to play. I found myself using guns like the LSAT, like I said, the PP2000, the CZ301, which actually, if you're worried about playing TDM because of the shotguns have been massively improved, and then if you're worried about going up against these guys, if you want an anti-shotgun weapon, you should use the CZ301. This gun will absolutely tear through people because it has such a high rate of fire, and I've just sort of generally liked this weapon. I just haven't used it much because it is a very close quarters weapon, but as long as you can maneuver around in maps like Operation Locker, it can be so effective and you can take out multiple enemies with it, and that's something I just loved, because you get someone who they put one shot on you with a shotgun. I found it was brilliant if you could then run around a corner and then peek around, because they'd be sprinting at you, they'd be thinking I have the upper hand, it's close quarters, I have a shotgun, I can gun them down, but then you peek around the corner as they're sprinting at you and you can just hose them down because of the high rate of fire of the CZ301, and that was something I just found to be so useful in countering shotguns. And admittedly, there are still some people that may play slightly cheap, sitting in corners, but generally people are moving around. No one wants to stay still because the spawns are probably going to flip and they'll have 20 people just sat right behind them. But I just had a lot of fun playing TDM, and it was just generally a fun experience and a bit of a nice change up, because I got to use different weapons, just having a bit of fun, working out what weapons might I want to master. But in fact, I haven't found any at the moment. If you want me to master any more weapons, please let me know down below and I'll get to work on those. But generally, I'm just flipping through all the weapons, just sort of having a bit of fun with them and then moving on to the next one. But anyway guys, I do hope you enjoyed this video. This has been the guy with no gamer tag, and I'll see you on another video.